Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We are tackling the high-stakes precision mission of setting Letourneau torque levels immediately after a rig move. We aren't just talking about your standard routine maintenance here. We're talking about taming massive mechanical forces so your rig doesn't suffer catastrophic instability. Getting this right, it requires absolutely total focus.
To start off, we really have to establish the urgency of the situation. You literally have a strict 24-hour window once the rig is jacked to its operational air gap to get every single gear unit retorqued. That clock, it starts ticking the exact moment that gap is reached. Mechanical precision across the entire rig is completely non-negotiable here.
So here's our roadmap for mastering this critical procedure. We'll look at the post-rig move setup, testing and zeroing the equipment, finding the target torque preload, correcting out-of-range torques, and finally, wrapping up with final gaps and reconnection.
Let's kick things off with Phase 1, the post-rig move setup.
Right out of the gate, this operation absolutely demands a strict two-person buddy system. You need exactly two people, one operating the popper and one manning the torque wrench. And the golden rule here, do not ever swap roles mid-motor without a full rebriefing. You both have to know exactly what the other's doing at all times. Oh, and of course, ensure your job safety analysis, your JSA, is fully completed and signed off before you even begin.
Okay, once you're cleared, you're going to execute a three-step prep sequence. First, disconnect just one joy plug at a time and completely remove those old tie wraps. Throw them away. Second, connect your popper to the motor brake head. And third, install the torque wrench guide frame. Now, that guide frame has to be seated perfectly because it's what centers the wrench on the motor shaft. Without it, your torque application isn't just a little bit off, it's completely unreliable.
Moving right along to Section 2, testing and zeroing your equipment.
Before you apply any heavy force, you really need to get a feel for the tension you're dealing with. So by rapidly turning the popper on and off, listen closely to the brake release. If you hear a really loud snap or crack, brace yourself because you're wrestling a high torque setup. But if it's more of a quiet click with minimal resistance, you've got a loose, low torque situation on your hands.
Now listen, this next part is a crucial safety check. If you do this and that torque feels dangerously high or uncontrollable, stop. Remove the wrench entirely, pop the brake to clear out that resistance, and build it back from zero. Never try to muscle through a dangerously high torque. It's just not worth the risk.
And that actually brings us to what I consider the absolute golden rule of this whole operation. Zero the wrench before every single reading. Seriously, a non-zero torque wrench gives a completely meaningless result. If you don't zero that dial indicator through the guide frame, you're basically flying blind, and all your data is entirely useless.
All right, Section 3, the target torque preload.
This is really the climax of the mission right here. You've got to master the 150 foot-pound preload technique. This means the wrench operator physically applies 150 foot-pounds of counterforce opposite to the motor's unwind direction. And here's the catch. You have to apply this pressure before the popper operator even touches the release signal. It's a delicate dance for sure. Now, you might be wondering, why is this specific preload so incredibly crucial? Well, applying that counterforce physically stops the motor from violently snapping into a new, false position the second it's electrically released. Holding that tension is what actually guarantees you a truly accurate baseline measurement of the torque that's already in the system.
So once that preload is securely applied, the popper operator will electrically release the brake, holding it open for just a tiny 1 to 2 second window. In that quick moment, you check your reading against our target matrix here. We are hunting for that sweet spot right in the middle, 150 to 200 foot-pounds. Read under 150, you'll need to increase it. Over 200, you've got to back it down.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, correcting out-of-range torques.
Let's say your reading is running a bit low, under 150 foot-pounds. What do? Well, keep holding your wrench firmly in position, have the popper operator electrically release the brake. While it's released, you manually rotate the motor to systematically increase the torque. Then reset the brake and recheck. Just remember to be systematic about it so you don't accidentally overshoot your target.
Now, conversely, if you hit above 200 foot-pounds, your procedure totally changes. You actually need to remove the torque wrench completely out of the guide frame. Once it's safely removed, pop the brake so the motor can freely unwind and dump that excess tension. Then, reinsert your wrench, re-zero your dial, and run your test again.
Finally, we reach Section 5, final gaps and reconnection. Okay, so you've hit that sweet spot of 150 to 200 foot-pounds. Awesome. While you're physically right there at the unit, go ahead and verify your air gaps. Grab a feeler gauge and check all 3 adjusting screws. If they need it, dial them in to exactly 0.07 to 0.090 inches. Doing this right now, in the moment, saves you an extra 2 minutes per break later on. And trust me, across a whole rig, that time really adds up.
Next up, grab a can of CRC 226. You want to give those Joy plug connectors a really healthy, firm spray. It's a quick, simple step, but it adds a vital layer of chemical armor against that harsh marine corrosion, which you absolutely need before making your final reconnection.
And circling all the way back to a point from our very first step, do not reinstall those tie wraps. You took them off earlier, and they need to stay off forever. Why? Because the control system has to be able to electrically release the brakes completely freely during active jacking operations. They are never meant for actual operations.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one absolutely critical question to ask yourself before your next heavy jacking operation. Are your rig's torque levels truly verified, or are they just assumed? In this industry, precision isn't an accident, it's protocol. Follow the steps, always zero your wrench, master that preload, and keep your rig secure. Thanks for diving into this with me, and I'll catch you on the next one.